Hi, online students. I have a couple things for you. I'm caught up grading diagnostic essays and reading response 0. I know some of you still have to submit the diagnostic essay, but I wanted to give you some overall feedback. I have a list here, so I'm just going to go in order. 1, poem titles always go in quotation marks, as do short story titles. Anything that's short is going to go in quotes. The anthology, your actual textbook, is going to go in italics because it's the name of an entire book. Cite poems and short stories, anything from this book, cite it as a work from an anthology. That's in your Tiger Guide to Writing, or you can Google that. Google MLA citation work in an anthology, and it will tell you how to cite that. On your works cited page, make sure you use hanging indent. That's where the second line gets indented, not the first line. I don't need you to cite this book as its own entry separately. You can just cite each poem. I know some of your course content asks you to cite the textbook and then cite the poems as separate entries, but if you look at the example works cited paper that's been attached to, I think, reading response 0, the feedback to everybody, there's an example works cited page there. So you don't have to cite the book separately for me. All right, let's see. Check. Okay, when you are quoting a poem in essays, use line numbers instead of page numbers in parentheses. So you'd put the author's last name like Plath and then line 1. You don't have to put a comma between Plath and line. You can also just put, if it's obvious if you're only talking about one author, you can just put line 1. If you're only talking about Plath and the whole thing, I would know you're talking about Plath. So you can put line 1, or you can just put the number 1. Just don't do a page number because it's not specific enough. If the entire poem fits on one page, then it's not telling me where you're talking about in the poem. So MLA wants you to use line numbers instead of page numbers for poems specifically. Also, put a slash mark in between where the lines are. So if you're quoting more than one line, quote the first line, put a slash mark, and then continue with the second line. Put a slash mark, continue with the third line. For short stories, fiction, creative nonfiction, anything that's prose, you're still going to use a page number, not a line number. So that is normal. Overall, just remember to use MLA format for document setup, for in-text citations, for works cited page. We use 8th edition, so you want to use these green pages in your handbook for MLA. You can also use Purdue OWL. It's the online writing lab for Purdue. Their citation information is all correct. I would stay away from citation generators because they tend to either not show up correctly, the information tends to be incorrect or missing, or not formatted properly. Even the reference software through Microsoft Word doesn't always show up properly. And honestly, MLA is actually really easy. So if you can do it by hand, you can be more sure that it's going to be correct. Be sure to look through all of the course content and read it. It's meant to help you. So everything I'm telling you right now should have already been in your course content. So make sure you're using that to help you as you go. And finally, please proofread for capitalization, spelling, punctuation, grammar, even these short assignments that are only worth like 10 points, like a reading response. Just get in the habit of proofreading because points will come off. The diagnostic essay is completion. So if you did it, you got your 50 out of 50 points. But reading responses, if there are proofreading errors, you might get 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, depending on how bad it is. It could be 7 out of 10 or worse. It just really depends. So just make sure you proofread. Use Microsoft Word to help you. If you have those little squiggly blue lines that show up, right-click on them and see if it's trying to get you to capitalize something. If it's red, see if it's a spelling error. If you don't already use Grammarly, you may want to look into that. It's a free software that you just add on to your computer. So anytime you're typing, it will give you feedback, even if you're not in Microsoft Word. I highly recommend Grammarly. So that's all I have for right now. Make sure you're keeping up with due dates. I usually will go through the gradebook and put in zeros once the due date has passed for anybody who didn't submit. Sometimes I get behind on that. I try not to, but if you don't see a 0 yet and you know that you missed the deadline, that 0 is coming. I will put that in. Even the diagnostic, that's due, I think today actually. So just make sure that you are keeping up with your deadlines. And as always, you can email me with questions that you may have. If you're ever on campus, I'm in IMC 240. I'm in my office. Here I am. I don't think I've ever shown you guys, but this is my office. Here I am. I'm always going to be in here, so if you want to stop by and ask questions or get some help, feel free to. Also, feel free to visit the Writing Center. They're familiar with all of these assignments as well. Anything I can do to help, let me know.